by land, by sea or by air. No matter where you are, we're coming to get you.
The Royal Marine Commandos are the British Rapid Reaction Force, an elite team that's usually the first in, get the job done, and they're out.
Basically, we had that many battle honours around the globe. The Crown said, your battle honours are so much, we'll give you the globe because you just fight all around the world.
We want to make a film by Royal Marines, former Royal Marines, been written by us, filmed by us, made by us.
These are the types of people that deserve all the attention in the world, and they deserve all the support.
The people who knock these buildings down are enormous.
America is at war.
I'm Luke Solomon. I'm from Plymouth originally. I joined the Royal Marines in 2012, left in just at the end of 2021.
My name is Stephen Blades. I'm from Sheffield in England. I was a Royal Marines commando.
My name's Cullen. I'm from Ireland. I was a Royal Marines commando for 37 and a half years.
I'm Tom Leigh. I'm English from the South Coast. I was a Royal Marines commando for 7 years. 1664, Royal Marines were formed, and we're getting ready for the war with the Dutch and the French and the Spanish. We had infantry on ships, but back then infantry was line infantry. They'd stand in a line, bayonets fixed, rifles coming. It's all very organised. What they realise is ship-to-ship warfare, when they're boarding each other, it doesn't really work very well. They needed people who could scrap, people who could really fight, pulling out knives, hatchets, and just getting stuck in. So they needed an infantry regiment who was specialised to living on ships, being able to sail, but also fight from the ships and then land from the ships.
The UK Navy was phenomenal. They were moving stuff everywhere, the merchant side of things, plus the warfare stuff. But what was happening was when they were getting challenged hand to hand, they were less successful, shall we say. A regiment of the army was cut away and given to the Navy, which was then renamed the Royal Marines.
18th century, 1700s, Corps was transformed, becoming bigger because the fleet was so much bigger. I call us the poor cousin or the pikey of the armed forces. They were always under the umbrella of the Navy, and they were a need to have, but they didn't really like us. They all still, I do love the naval service, but they were all still living in the Horatio Nelson time. But during that time, to be an officer in the Royal Marines was the cheapest to become an officer, because you used to have to pay for your commission. And the cheapest one to be was to be a Royal Marine. That was the cheapest officer. Not a Guards officer, not naval officer, not any of the other regiments. And most of the officers and the enlisted men during those times and fighting the battles at the hardest end were mostly Irish and Scottish. The Celtic and the Irish and Scottish blood through the Corps' DNA has been there from day one, and it still is today. The Royal Marines became commandos, and that was in the Second World War. Basically, we had that many battle honours around the globe. The Crown said, your battle honours are so much, we'll give you the globe because you just fight all around the world.
The Second World War saw the creation of a new type of fighting man, the commando. Not just a tough guy, but a sapper, signaller, marksman, parachutist, scout, seaborne raider, a specialist in modern warfare.
And then it kind of kept evolving from there. We would do land ops, sea ops. We started to realise wherever they could place the Marines would operate, no issue. Came into World War II, and that's where the Royal Marines became the Royal Marines Commandos. What they realised, these guys are effective, and what we wanted to do is the Nazis were pushing forwards. They were dominating the ground too well. And what we wanted to be able to do was drop 4 to 8 men behind enemy lines who would go and make it feel like there's a battalion behind you. Because supply lines are getting hit, things are going wrong, people are getting assassinated. There's got to be a significant force there, so the Nazis would have to turn around significant numbers of their forces to face this threat that they thought would be thousands of men. It's actually just 8 dudes just causing havoc. Hitler actually put out a thing, if anyone would catch Royal Marines, they were not to be held prisoner, they were to be killed straight away, because these guys are too much of a problem. Even Margaret Thatcher, said the Royal Marines should be locked up in a cage and only released during times of war. They got, we built a good reputation from that.
And congratulate our forces and the Marines. Good night, gentlemen.
Recent years, since our time in the Middle East and recent conflicts, it's moved on even further. And the commando force now, the brigades now turned into the commando force, and they're now more like a, more officially in a commando role, supporting other, so we say, tier 1 type special forces organizations and being their support. So they'll go forward, they'll go deep behind enemy lines and potentially carry out strike operations.
What drove me to join the Royal Marines? I just wanted a challenge in life. I found myself at the age of 22 stagnant. My 2 best friends had joined the Marines. One was in Afghanistan, one was just finishing training, and I thought, yeah, I fancy a challenge. I wanted to know what my ceiling limit was. I wanted to know how hard I could be pushed.
Could have done a professional sport career. That's where it was heading to. But that's when London bombings happened, 9/11 was going on, and I decided it was too close to home, My whole family were military. My dad was military, my uncle was military, my brother was military. My other uncle was in the police. My mum was worked in a hospital. It's a very service-oriented family. So, and me being me, I was like, which military unit do I want to join? Which one's the hardest one? Which one's better than the one that my dad joined? And that's where everyone was saying, the Royal Marine Commandos.
I'm the kind of person that always wants to throw myself into the hardest thing that I can do. So knowing that the Marines was like the hardest training to go through, I instantly was drawn to it. And then when I was 16, me and my mum went to the careers office trying to get her to sign the papers, and she wouldn't at first, because it's not something you want your son to do, especially not at 16. And I convinced her, and she ended up bravely taking me again and signing the papers, and that was it. Entered Royal Marine training, and that was the start of it all.
They're going from civilian straight off, or from university, college, school, straight into a military environment. And if they're not worried, they ought to be.
Royal Marine Commando basic training is very well known as one of, if not the hardest and most grueling and longest basic training there is. If I was to sum up training, the best way to describe it would be, the idea is to completely break you, to remove not so much your beliefs, but remove all the weaknesses that you have. And then once you are a bit of an empty shell, they can then mold you into the elite soldier that they need you to be. And throughout the process, the mental challenges that you face and you overcome by the end of it, it puts you in a position where comfortably take on any challenge that's faced in front of you. If an oppo gets blown up or shot or just injured or unfortunately killed, you can unemotionally pick up their body, carry them out, pick up their limbs, carry them out. In the heat of things, there's no time for emotion. You just need to think fast. The whole process of Royal Marines Commando training it's not only to create a physical machine, but also to create an unemotional mental strength as well. After basic training, I was drafted up to 4-5 Commando in Arbroath, Scotland. I spent a little bit of time there and then moved down to Commando Brigade HQ in Plymouth. And I went on Herrick 9 to Afghanistan with them. I was tasked with protecting a telecommunications civilian out there, navigate transportation with him, go to all the forward operating bases, and he would, construct little satellite dishes and antennas and stuff so the lads could pick up BFBS radio and just have a bit more morale. And my job was just to make sure that he stayed alive and safe.
Went to 40 Commando. These are the fighting units that go off to go to war. We were heading to Afghanistan. We were getting Pashto and Dari courses for the dialect, to speak to people, because we were going to be put into Nari Siraj South, which was, at that point in time, that was the front line for the UK, learning the enemy weapon systems, learning the American weapon systems, because we've been working closely with some SEAL teams who were working out of RPB. And then we deployed to Afghanistan, say Nari Siraj South, dropped into a pretty spicy zone. You know, we had, in the first 2 months, I lost my best friend, one of my best friends, Dave O'Connor. He was my section commander as well. Great, awesome guy, amazing soldier as well. And we lost Channing Day, had a couple other injuries. It was the guys we'd worked with as well. So we're working with like Afghan National Police, Afghan Army. We were working with them to try and set the country up so we wouldn't always have to be there. And when you're working with these guys, and some of them are great guys, you feel like you're getting somewhere with them. You're joking with them, joking around, and then one day, half of them turn on you. You don't expect it, you don't see it coming. Maybe we should have. Difficult start to that tour because that was right at the beginning. We managed to see out the tour, came back, went to 30 Commando. I joined Y Squadron, which is it's one of the squadrons in the UK, elite squadrons for reconnaissance, long-range reconnaissance and electronic warfare. So part of our job at that point would be to do long-range reconnaissance behind enemy lines, locate command stations and command and control places, HQs, comms, OPs, and then either surveil, destroy, or disrupt those positions. And with that, I was also doing communication courses, so like, radio communications, etc., all that kind of stuff. Ended up working with a lot of US guys. As I say, we had SEAL teams working out of flying into our PB in Afghan. We were working heavily with those. Ended up working all across the Middle East until the point where when I broke my back under pressure, so much pressure that it crushed the nerves in my spine and made my legs turn off if I was bent over a certain point, and I was through a lot of pain. So I was going through physical therapy to try and surgeries and injections to try and help ease that back problem out. But then I was going through like psychiatry because I had PTSD, depression linked to all that.
I went on, worked specifically in amphibiosity for the Marines, so working on the small boats and deploying with them. So from there I been to Norway training, the Arctic training, all around the Americas, South America, been in the jungle in Belize, which was just the most incredible environment. All across the Middle East a few times, into Asia as well. I was on operations in Sierra Leone during the Ebola pandemic, which was interesting. Just a lot of training, a lot of cross-training with other forces and providing security operations throughout the sort of Middle East area. A cliche saying, but like tip of the spear, everywhere the Marines were going, they would put us in because of the amphibious side of it. Like we were everywhere all the time, and the squadron I was in was very small, so there was only 2 groups of us, so if one was deployed the other had to go and catch up whatever else needed doing. I know when Tip came and worked with us for a bit, and I think he underestimated how busy we were, and he came away from that and he said to me, that's one of the busiest jobs I've ever done in the Marines, working with you guys.
I received my Green Beret, and when you finish your commando test you get presented with your Green Beret, and honestly as a young man at the time I felt that I was just the biggest rock star in the whole wide world. I'd say 4 months to join a 4-2 Commando, I was away on my first operations, and we deployed on an emergency operation for a few months. So I went into reconnaissance troop at 4-2 Commando, done my parachute course in 1988, and that was me. I was in heaven, and now I just needed to focus on becoming a mountain leader. You had to do it at corporal level, so I got to be a corporal, and I'd done my mountain leaders course. And then somebody came and said, you've been promoted to sergeant. I became a troop sergeant in the commando unit. From there, I got caught in quite a tight ops cycle. 98, 99, I was deployed in operations, but then I went into the brigade reconnaissance force after that. In 2001 then, we came back from Kosovo, we were doing exercises, and then, as we all know, 9/11 happened, and we deployed to Afghanistan, and we got involved in ops out there. And we came back from there, and then we got another heads up that Iraq was on the horizon and that we were going to go to Iraq. I was quite senior by this stage, and I became a sergeant major. Sergeant major, carried on with that. Then my lads and a few people, helmets started kicking off in Afghanistan, and our lads were caught up quite a bit in that. Done that, nearly coming to the end of my time, but I loved being a Royal Marine, and I went for a commission. So I went to the Admiralty interview board and became an officer. And within a year, I was back out on operations in Afghanistan as the ops officer for the Brigade Recce Force again. And that was a really hard tour, a very successful tour.
When I came home, I ended up being involved in an incident where I got injured pretty badly and I became blind in my right eye. Now with the SA-80, which is the weapon system that I was using back then, it's fired on the right side, so obviously with the right eye gone, I became pretty useless in that sense. So I knew that medical discharge was coming, but at the time the Royal Marines were dragging their feet, and I ended up staying in for another year knowing that this medical discharge was coming. And during that time I knew that I'd lost everything. I knew that I'd lost my entire future. I'd lost the Marines, I'd lost my career, I'd lost my eyesight. And I grew very bitter. And at the time I ended up growing very bitter towards the Corps, towards the Marines, because I felt betrayed. I knew they were going to kick me out. I knew I was going to get medically discharged, and it hurt. And I was facing my own demons, and I was going down a really dark path of depression. I ended up going AWOL for a little bit. That upset a lot of people in the Corps. And I was struggling, and I didn't want to be around anymore. I wanted to end it. Just before I took any action on anything that I was thinking about doing, I attended an acting class in Sheffield, and it just gave me something that I needed. It gave me a sense of belonging. And I hit a crossroads. I became torn between this new experience, this creative arts thing, or self-destruction. And I thought, you know what? Either I go down that route and everything ends, or I take a huge risk and a gamble and I go down the creative arts route. And I just thought, stuff it, I'll take a risk. So I sold my house, I sold my car, and I moved from Sheffield down to London, and I began doing extra work, supportive artist work, and then also attending classes and learning the craft.
It was a difficult time, but I went through this physical therapy, wasn't really working. Psychiatry, hit and miss. The psychiatrist I was talking to, he told me, part of your issue is you've lost the ability to identify emotions in others and in yourself and express those. Potentially part of the trust thing, if I just block all emotion out, I'm not going to give anything to you and you can't take anything from me. Maybe a million theories, probably all correct in some way. Now, how do humans express themselves? It's through art. That art is humans expressing themselves. There's music, there's painting, there's acting, there's everything. It's this huge amount of stuff, and people think they don't like it, but you'll always find one thing. Even cooking's an art. And he was like, I know it sounds wild, but we're kind of at a loss here, and you're going to get medically discharged, which means you're not going to have this support anymore. So I'm trying to help you out best I can. Maybe give it a go. And I thought, fuck off. And until one day, I saw a local community theatre. So like small place, everyone's shit. Who goes there, it's just for fun, right? We go there for fun, it was free. And I was like, just give it there's probably gonna be chicks there, right? Because there's always chicks there. Worst case, I'm sure I'll have a nice time. And I went and I had the best time I'd had in 5-6 years. There's a few of us now, commandos, who've become actors or sitting behind camera. And that's when they reached out to me and said, Tom, you know Tommy Roberts, right? Tip Cullen. And I was like, I do know Tip. Yeah, me and him had been on stage together. And they were like, well, we want to make a film by Royal Marines, former Royal Marines, for military in the US, for military in the UK, for military in the world, just a military film where it's been written by us, filmed by us, made by us. Because you don't get that. You get Hollywood do a good job, but they do the Hollywood job. And who are we as the military to complain about that if we don't offer anything ourselves? So like, we can do this.
Sunray was actually the reason why I started acting. So when Sunray was started getting developed, I was in the very early processes of its development, the sort of embryonic ideas that were being thrown around, I was involved in. And then when it started growing arms and legs, it became something that was just almost like a little pet project into something extremely real. It's an outlet for the creativity that I think was always there, just never really explored.
They had a rough journey of what our story would likely to be if we got the funding. And if I wasn't acting, I was running with a boom. And if I wasn't running with a boom, I was making the coffee or getting the weapons ready or doing something like that. So there's a certain amount of cheats that you have to do in filmmaking. And we were able to do that. We were able to do it because we found it easy to work as a team. We work well as a team. Sunray Fallen Soldier is my character, is Andy.
He's a former Royal Marines commando, long-serving Royal Marines commando, who leaves. He's got his own, demons that he's suffering with.
Very lost in civilian world, trying to seek help, but not really getting heard, which again, I think people can understand. His daughter is in with the wrong crowd.
His daughter goes to a party, she takes some bad drugs at this party, gets encouraged to take some, and it's been cut with some bad stuff, and she dies. And off the back of that, Andy decides, if I'm gonna do anything, I'm gonna find out who sold this to my daughter, who forced her to take these drugs. And on this rampage to do that, he uncovers like a criminal underground. It's not just drugs.
He ends up rekindling with his team, and it ends up unweaving quite a big fabric of criminal enterprise. If you're going to tell a British story about British veterans, it stays in the British format. A lot of people don't understand the criminal element within the UK. You look back at the crime in the UK has always been a massive thing. The Cray twins, they were in links with the mafia. The importance is keeping that element of believability. Go down in any city and see the people that we portrayed. You will see those people. You will see people of organised type crime, a lot of drugs, a lot of issues, a lot of poverty, which leads to more crime. People will say like, well, it's very jolly over in England. It's not that bad. No, it's not great. And it's a realistic tale. It's a great scope for us to continue on that believability within the British scene.
We didn't have to really rehearse. Like, we didn't have to block it. We didn't have to do 5-day long rehearsals and figure out where they're going to capture it. They would just go, right, guys, you're a 4-man team. This is how you're equipped. This is how much ammunition you've got. This is your intel on this location. This is how many bad guys are in there. Go clear it. All right. That was just us doing our job. And we all left a lot of us left a long time ago, and it just comes back like, so seeing it that first time in the cinema and seeing people's reaction to it might be my favorite thing, because no matter how confident you are in your product, you never know how other people are going to react to it. It was so amazing to see everyone really love what we'd made, the military especially. And you'll watch it thinking, yeah, this is up there with some of Hollywood films. I mean, I'm so happy and proud to have done that.
At random a few months ago, I am in new releases on iTunes for movies, and I see this movie called Sunray Fallen Soldier. And after reading that summary and seeing kind of the visuals with that, I was sold. I was like, holy cow, this sounds like a really cool movie. So I buy the movie and watch it. To my surprise, upon researching it, this was all done by United Kingdom British Royal Marine Commandos. Enlisted military guys coming together and using that teamwork mentality to just make something great. There's a lot of pride in that. And it shows their talent and their skill. And I love to see that these guys separated from the military with a dream and then a skill that they worked on and they worked on and they honed and honed and honed, and then they achieved something like this. This started out as a short. It started out as a skit, just to test their skills, to see if there was any interest. And then all of a sudden they wake up and they raised all this money and they realized that they could make a full feature film. And what did they do? They turned around and they all sat down and they wrote it themselves. I want to help this film succeed because I'm so proud of what you guys did, and I'm so happy to see veterans leaving the service after spending 2 decades at war and then accomplishing something this cool and this awesome. These are the types of people that deserve all the attention in the world, and they deserve all the support. Buy the movie, rent the movie, watch the movie. You won't be disappointed because I want to see them do 2, 3, 4 more. They deserve it. They're good writers. They're good actors. They're good. They know how to put together an awesome story, because this film was super cool, and it had that awesome twist in the end, which I won't give away. But you know, these guys did a really, really good job.
It's crazy how similar we all are. You take away the accent, and we're basically telling the same story. Like, we all feel the same. If we talk about that feeling of loss when you leave the military, we all get it. You talk about the loss of the Brotherhood, we all get it. Talk about losing friends, we all get it.
We have a lot of respect for American troops. And to be honest, I feel like more respect should be given. The levels that American troops go to when it comes to your length of tours, for instance, year plus long tours, I admire that so much. You know, our tours, they're usually like 6-7 months, and I have a lot of admiration for, you know, your guys and girls.
The last 20 years, if not longer, we've been not just allies in the fight, but allies in trade. You know, I always think in the UK, we buy all your stuff. Like, we're Americans in all but food, and we consume the same media, the same movies. We're all watching the US movies coming out, and we're similar cultures, even though we sound a bit weird to you guys, and you guys sound a bit weird, you know, accent-wise, but we're real similar cultures. We have a lot of the same values. We realize together we're stronger together. We're all one big team to us.
When you're in the military, you get put in a certain box of where you feel like you are supposed to fit in. And then when you leave, they fall into a pit of loss. They've lost the thing that they needed, the military, the brotherhood, the banter. And I feel like the creative arts industry, it gives people a chance to shine again. It gives people a sense of belonging. And then when I was cast in Sunray and I joined the team and I was amongst it all, and we were filming and we had other veterans coming on board, whether it be with the lighting or the drone operator or just runners or guys playing enemy. I was in that world again, and I was surrounded by my brothers again, and it gave me a sense of belonging again, and it made me fall in love with the Marines again. So Sunray to me, it means a lot.